If I was starting a new project manager job in the next 30 to 90 days, this is exactly what I would be focusing on. My name's Alvin. I'm an engineering project manager, and this is the exact roadmap that I would follow to succeed in a new project manager job. Now, the framework that I'm going to share with you only follows 3 steps, which I'm calling CORE, C-O-R. And so it stands for clarify, observe, and relationship building. So when you're first starting out in a new role as a project manager, the very first thing you should focus on is clarify. What I mean by clarify is you cannot succeed in your role without understanding what your actual manager expects from you. So you need to clarify what his or her expectations are from you. Now I'm taking a look at my notes here because I jotted down so many things that I want to share with you. The very first thing that's part of clarifying is understanding what the manager has in store for you. So some questions that you could ask him or her are, what is the definition of success for my position? Now this will be different depending on the 30 versus 60 versus the 90-day mark, but you need to understand what they expect from you to be considered a success. Because when you first join a company, you want to pass the 90-day mark so you can still keep working in that same role, right? So you want to understand, what does he or she think would be marked considered successful if I was to stay in this position long term? The next thing you want to understand is, what are they expecting from me as a project manager? You see, your first 90 days will be different than when you're actually leading and managing your own projects. So you need to understand, what do they expect from you as a project manager? Their expectation of you will be different than what someone else expects of you in another department. So it's very important that you get the words from your manager on what they're going to be grading you on for your performance review. So first things first, get a copy of your job description and understand, does what they expect from you align with that job description? What do they want to see from you to succeed in the next year? Write down what the biggest goals and objectives that your manager has, and how what you're going to be working on will lead them towards that success mark. Now, a few other questions that I do recommend asking your manager are the following. What pain points need to be solved? Second, what projects are the highest risk and the highest visibility? What problems do you want me to focus on first? And the last question here is more on understanding how your manager likes to communicate. How do you prefer updates? Do you want them every other day? Do you want them weekly? Because when you're onboarding into a new role in project management, you want to report directly to your manager, but you're not quite sure yet how they like to communicate with you. Maybe they just prefer a quick, simple message on Teams. If that's the case, that's pretty easy. Or do they want a message through email? Or do they want an in-person 5-minute conversation with you every other day? You got to figure out what works best for them. Understand their communication preference and their communication style. Stick to it and start understanding what your manager prefers and desires to see from you on a day-to-day basis. The other thing that I want you to know, which took me months to figure out, is when you're talking to your manager, don't just accept the generic answer of, yeah, so we hired you because there's so many projects that we need help on. You need to dig deeper and really understand, why are they hiring a project manager? And the real reason could be, there's a really big new product development initiative and there's just not enough bandwidth. Or it could be, the team is in entire turmoil and the previous project manager left the company. So we need you to step into this role to take over this failing project and bring it to success. It might sound very stressful, very challenging, but you need to understand the cards that you're being dealt with here, right? Every project manager role is different and you need to understand the ground that you're walking your foot on. And the only way to do that is to dig deeper, even when your manager gives you a generic answer like, yeah, we just hired a project manager because we need to deliver our projects on time. No, please do not take that as your answer that you're going to be adhering to. You want to find out, is it because we need to to make things more efficient? Is there a revenue target that we're trying to hit? Are we launching a new product? Are we taking over a failed project that now needs to be resolved faster than ever before? Is it because the previous project manager left the company? Like, dig deeper and understand why is it that you're here. And the other thing that was really mind-blowing for me when I first started a new role as a project manager that I want to communicate to you is every job brings value to the company, right? When I was an engineer, I brought value because I helped launch products to market. So if the product, drove in and generated $1 million in a year, then I helped contribute towards an extra $1 million in revenue, right? In some shape or form, I helped bring value in that monetary increase in revenue, right? As a project manager, you will bring value in your ROI through helping lead teams through the different stages from the Tuckman ladder all the way through the 5 dysfunctions of a team, like Patrick Lencioni talks about in the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and also with helping launch projects on time and within budget, right? You're helping lead a team more effectively so that projects can be delivered on time. And if projects can be delivered on time, then that means that our customers will be satisfied. We can deliver products on time to market so that we can capitalize on the money that we invested. We'll be able to make more revenue on a quarter-to-quarter basis. We can maintain and scale up our business operations. We can improve our regulatory compliance. We can improve our quality initiatives so that we're developing the best product that's out there, right? That's how you're going to be standing out as a project manager. And so when you're entering into this role, you need to understand and remember that mindset, because you in your role need to deliver value to your manager and to the company itself, right? So just something to think about as you're entering into this new role. Now, the second thing that will help you navigate your first 30, 60, or 90 days in a project manager job is just to observe. You want to just sit there, observe, soak up, and just be a sponge with what everyone is telling you everything about, right? You want to be a sponge. Very recently, my wife introduced me to this really cute animal called Okoko. And I never had heard of it before, but when you look it up on Google, and I'll put an image here so you can see what I'm talking about, this animal just like looks at you with a smile on its face. Right? They're just observing with a smile. And that's kind of a similar approach that you want to take when you're starting out in a new company, in a new project manager role. You don't always have to be smiling, but you do want to be observant, right? You want to be humble, be appreciative, have those open conversations with people. Don't be negative, be positive, be the kind of person who's willing to learn from other people and see how things really are in the company. Now is the time to play the wild card of, hey John, my name's Alvin. I'm completely new here, and I just want to learn what's going on in our team, right? Use the wild card of, I'm new here and I want to learn. Because in the first 30 to 90 days, your main job is to observe and soak up everything like a sponge. There will be so many rules and standards and policies and procedures that you need to know. You don't need to memorize everything, but you do need to know how to find them. And even more so, you need to know how to use the software. And there can be many software like the ERP software or the project management software tools, or, just a huge range of tools that everyone uses, right? Like, what do they use to communicate online? What tool do they use to hold meetings? How do they brainstorm ideas virtually? How do people manage their products online? Is there a specific program management software tool online to deliver more collaborations and productivity, right? Dig deeper, understand why are things done a certain way. And if you can, try to be a participant in different meetings so you can just be a fly on the wall, right? You want to observe, how are meetings currently structured? Who is the one who leads the meetings? Is management always a part of every single meeting? How is the culture like? Do people have like this mentality of like, we need to get things done as soon as possible? Or is it a little bit more laid back, right? You want to just have a sense of the feeling of like, okay, so this is how the company culture is like. Let me figure out what the rules of the land are so I can slowly fit in. And that's your goal here. So first, sit in and as many meetings as you can and understand, what do people usually like to do around here? Do they follow products to the T? Are there specific board rules and meetings that are set up on a weekly or monthly or quarterly basis? Find ways to be a part of them. Can you ask your manager, Like, hey, I would love to shadow a current project manager and just see how current products are reported up to leadership. Is there a steering committee that I could sit on for one meeting? And then you can even ask to see how are the steering committee review updates being reported on a quarterly basis. Just try to find a way to be a fly on the wall to see how meetings are currently led and how projects are currently being managed by other project managers in your department. So you're going to be tackling this in a few ways, right? How does work actually get done? So I've written down a few questions and I highly recommend you write these down so you can look into it even deeper. What systems are in place? What's the hierarchy and organizational structure of the company? How do people lead and manage their projects? What are the best practices? Is there a PMO? Who are the most important stakeholders that you need to talk to? How are daily huddles and daily scrums and daily stand-ups led? And how does everyone use the project management software? The second big question area to ask is, how are decisions being made? Who is the big authority who makes decisions? How are conflicts usually dealt with? Does it go to a specific manager? Do you notice that when you're on a meeting that they immediately report and escalate it up to a director? Or is it just kept shh, like no one talks about it, right? They just sweep it under the rug. You need to observe and see, how do people make decisions and how do people navigate with conflict? And lastly, how are change requests processed? This is very important. If you're going to be stepping into a role as a project manager and you'll be taking over a failed project, you need to know, how are change requests processed? Is there a specific person or a department or a team of managers that you notify? Is there a form that you fill out? Is there some kind of repository where you can access all this information? Dig deeper and find out where you can get this information. By the way, if you're watching this video and you haven't yet landed a project manager job, but you need my help, you can download my free resume template to land your next project manager job over at alvinthepm.com/resume template. This template is the exact structure that I use to land multiple project manager jobs. It's free because I want to see you succeed and I want to hear about your success. So dive in, grab a copy of it, and start using it to apply to project management jobs today. Now, the third step in our core framework is to do relationship building. It's very easy and it sounds just like it sounds. You want to start building relationships with the people around you, but you also want to be very strategic here. You don't want to just network with every single person you start seeing, right? You want to be very intentional with who you talk to and who you're having your lunches with. You see, project managers spend 90% of their time communicating with other people. We're out here to build relationships with other people. And when you're on a project that has 30 people, you need to know who those people are. And I was recently reading a book by Simon Sinek called Leaders Eat Last. And one of the biggest principles that he talks about is learn to see humans not as numbers on a piece of paper, or, oh yeah, he's an engineer, she's the data analyst, or he's the marketing manager. Learn to see them as human beings. Learn to connect with them on a human being level, because we're all humans here. You and I, we both have hobbies. We have families. You could be the son of a father, right? You could have a sister. You might have a family of 5 kids, or you could have a job in customer service. You might have hobbies and enjoy going to the movies or going to concerts or hiking, or even weight training, going to the gym. Maybe you like to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Whatever it is, you have your own hobbies and your own preferences, and we are all human beings. And that is something that took me some time to figure out, because I came from an engineering background where I was so introverted, where I wasn't used to opening up my shell and getting open to talking to other people. I was so introverted. But once I became a project manager, I had to open up my shell, completely flip the switch, and start talking to people and getting to know people for who they really are. And that's even more evident in your first 90 days in a new project manager job. You have to put yourself out there and ask questions to get to know who the people are on your team. It doesn't have to be your team, but it could be the people who are literally reporting up to your manager and the people who you think you might be working with on your project. Get to know them on a human being level. Have empathy for their situation. Understand, what's their background? Where did they go to school? What did they study? Did they go to university for engineering? Did they study finance? Maybe they're currently studying for an MBA. And then go deeper, have more personal conversations like, oh, so what do you like to do for fun outside of work? Maybe they'll tell you, oh, I love playing the guitar. Then you can ask more questions like, what kind of music do you like? What musicians inspire you the most, right? It's so endless, the number of conversation topics that you can ask, but you have to dig deeper. And so what I recommend is meeting with a few key stakeholders in your company to jumpstart your 90 days as a project manager. And I wrote down a few here in my notes. The first one is your sponsor. I'm assuming that you'll be leading 1, 2, 3, maybe a few projects, right? And there's always a sponsor, someone who is the promoter of your project, someone who wants the project to be successful. They're the ones who wanted the project to start from the very beginning. You want to have a lunch or at least a coffee or a get together with your sponsor. Get to know them better because they will be your personal advocate who will support you day in and day out, no matter what obstacle you're experiencing in your project. Second is your leadership team. Every company has directors, managers, and vice presidents. Depending on who you are, what your role is, you definitely want to connect with other managers, definitely your own manager, but a few other managers in other functional groups like engineering, maybe marketing, maybe operations, maybe product development, maybe quality. It all depends on who you're going to be interfacing with, but you want to start building relationships with other groups who you know you'll be interacting with the most. Third are team members. So on projects, right, as you're starting to attend these meetings, you might notice that there are a few team members who go to these meetings very frequently, or maybe there are team leads who you'll be working with side by side. Get to know them and get a quick lunch with them, or just sit down and have a coffee with them. And lastly, anyone who will be involved in your projects. And I say anyone because it could be a technician, it could be someone who's on the manufacturing floor, it could be someone in customer service, it could be someone in data analytics, it could be anyone, but you just want to get to know them if they might be someone who you might talk to on a month-to-month or maybe bi-weekly basis. Just get to know them. And while you're getting to know them, I recommend asking a few questions so you can understand the lay of the land, right? You want to be prepared and see, how do people currently see the company? The questions that I wrote down in my notes are, number 1, what's working right now? Number 2, what's not working very well? Number 3, what are the biggest risks on our projects? Number 4, what would success look like to you if I was supporting you as a project manager? And this is a very important question to ask, because if you're asking your sponsor or another manager or a team lead who will be working with you on the project, you can get an idea of what success will look like if you're going to be supporting them on a day-to-day basis. And finally, the last question is all about communication. You want to ask them, how do you prefer to communicate on projects? Do you like to do messages in person, Teams call, etc.? You don't necessarily have to ask this question, but it definitely is important to ask if you're talking to your manager, a vice president, a director, or someone who you might be interfacing with, let's say in an executive report update meeting, right? These are different kinds of communication styles, but you need to know it from who you'll be interfacing with the most. So talk to as many people as you can, but be very strategic with your intention here and just get an overall perspective from people who you might be working with. These are the 3 steps to being successful in your first 90 days as a project manager. Follow these 3 areas. Get clarity, observe, and start relationship building. Do everything you can in these 3 steps and you will be successful. Now, once you're starting out your role as a project manager, it's so important to progress and get the right certifications. Please watch this video next to find out the best certifications to take, and I'll see you in the next video.